Hi everyone, my name's Andrew and welcome to Marmar Creek. How fantastic would it be to have the car industry again? And even better, how great would it be to reproduce some of the classic cars, the Australian cars of the 70s. This is the first in a series of videos where we're going to be documenting the build and the restart of Australia's car industry. The way that the car is going to be built is using modern techniques, but using the old design principles back from the 70s. So hopefully a really good combination. So I've been involved in racing since I was 10 years old. I grew up in a service station in Adelaide and had great fun, mooching around with mum and dad in the school holidays, and eventually they bought me a motorbike and I started racing that. So been involved in the racing industry all my life. Was restoring a car. I was driving out to Gayndah in country Queensland. It was a day trip and going to buy some parts off a guy who was clearly ripping me off for parts that were no good. And I'm thinking, as I'm driving there, thinking, what am I doing? Buying all these parts, it's cost me a fortune, and I've got to restore them as well. So why don't I build a new car? Is that such a crazy idea? What would that look like? I mean, modern cars now are built the same way Henry Ford built them. Really, big factories, assembly lines, pressed steel panels, spot welded together. Is that the approach you would use, or would you use a different kind of approach? Would it be out of a modern material? Would it be a different way? What would the new car look like? Would I have to sit down and design one? A very difficult challenge, and lots of the factories have their own design studios. Or could I copy an existing design? So there's lots of things to think about when you would build a car. And I think that'd be a good project. I'm a project manager. Let's find out if I'm a decent project manager and I can manage quite a complex project of reproducing a car from scratch. Like lots of people, with mum and dad, I sat down in front of the TV, watched Bathurst, and I still remember 1979, Peter Brock in the classic A9X Torana, drove a flawless race and won it by 6 laps, a feat that will never ever be repeated today.
He's done it. What a season for this incredibly talented driver.
So, those sorts of things stick in your mind, and that was the car from that point that I always wanted to have. The car behind me, you can see there, I bought in 1997 for $2,000 from Broken Hill, and it was a rust-free body shell. It took me 2 years to find it, and over a period of time it was built up into what you see behind me today, a Targa Tasmania race car. It's one of my favourite shapes. It's a favourite shape of a lot of people, so why not reproduce that car? 1977, the best that cars could be. 10-inch solid disc brakes was the best I could come up with, drums on the back, flimsy gearboxes, engines that were powerful but not very fuel efficient. You're at the wreckers every Saturday buying a new differential. Air conditioning non-existent, 4x100, wind down the windows, 100 kilometres an hour. So not much fun. So could we take that and introduce some modern technology into it? Think about the last cars of the Australian car industry. The last Commodore, 6.2 litre engine, fuel efficient, under 10 litres to 100 with 325 kilowatts. Good, strong, robust drive lines. But having said that, they got heavy. A V8 hatchback was 1,209 kilos from the factory, where the last Commodore, VF2 with a V8 in it, was over 1,800 kilos. So 600 kilos is made up of all your comfort features like air conditioning and multimedia system, big heavy seats with power operation, and lots of the safety built into an old design chassis. So your monocoque chassis or your pressed steel chassis got heavier and heavier over time to allow for the safety features that are built into modern cars. So, and really, in reality, it's lazy engineering. Car manufacturers always held back by cost, so it was easy just to keep adding to the old designs rather than redesign using modern techniques, using lighter, stronger, safer methods. Is there a balance there between producing a car that's light, like the old 70s cars, but still has all those modern features? The high performance engines, the solid drive lines, and some safety and comfort features. Because in reality, we want to date a supermodel, not her mother. There's a lot of options in terms of how you might design a new car. So I could go with the old pressed steel, spot welded together type design, and I looked at that initially. But I don't have a big factory, I don't have a workforce of people and an assembly line, so it makes it pretty difficult. I started exploring some suppliers doing in the States. They're building old body shell replacement shells for Camaros, Mustangs, and they're doing those in Thailand. They're quite reasonably priced. But I looked into the dies, and it was over $1 million of dies, so that didn't really make sense. So I was watching a V8 Supercar telecast. Those cars are built from a tube frame chassis, so why not do that? It's Australian, those chassis are produced in Australia. They've been proven out by V8 Supercar. They're very light, very strong, very safe. So why not do it that way in terms of reproducing that as a road car? I'm not a millionaire. I don't have a lot of backers. It's just me and the missus. I'm 59 years old and I'm an IT project manager. So I don't have experience in the car industry. I'm an enthusiast like lots of the people watching this show. We're in a shed. This is going to be the factory. I don't have acres of land and massive factories like the old car manufacturers with large workforces. There's just not the budget to do that. I don't have the expertise that car manufacturers have in terms of teams of engineers and designers. I also don't know, which is the most important thing, is whether if I build a car, who would buy it? I don't know. I don't have a marketing team, focus groups to go out and test the market. I just have to build it and see if the people will buy it. So there's a number of challenges. But in good Australian spirit, let's just have a crack at it and see what happens. My background personally, like I said, I'm an IT project manager, so it's not my core skill set, but I have come from a racing background. I started racing when I was 10 years old in mini bikes, went through and raced motorbikes for 15 years and did okay there, won a state championship at that level. And then went away, got married and things slowed down a bit. But quite fortuitously, my father-in-law was ex-Formula One and got me involved in open-wheeler motor racing with the Torana racing team. And I was always pestering him when I go down there, how can I get involved with my IT background? And quite fortuitously at that time, telemetry started appearing in Australia out of F1. So all the data logging started to appear in open-wheeler race cars coming to Australia. So I approached the team and was lucky enough to get seconded onto that team. And I basically was at the forefront of developing data logging and telemetry in Australia, and worked there for 20 years at what I consider the highest level of motor racing in Australia, Formula 3. If we're going to leap into this, we need some structure in behind it. What are the objectives and how we're going to pull it together? My thinking is that we tackle Australia's low volume manufacturer status. So we don't need to produce millions of cars, we just don't have the funds and the workforce to be able to do that. So low volume manufacturer status is 100 cars a year, and that, I think that's a pretty decent achievement. 100 cars a year, if we can do that, we're doing pretty well. If we think about suppliers, I don't have machines and workforce again to produce lots of stuff, so why don't we outsource everything? There's lots of pretty smart people out there that are doing good work producing things, so if we outsource the whole thing, and then I just become an assembler, like lots of the car manufacturers ended up doing. Let's try and use local suppliers when we can. Australia's got a lot of expertise in this country, both in and out of the old car industry, so we can use some of the expertise and draw on that and try and keep it where possible within Australia. And finally, the cars need to be road registerable. The whole idea is that they're out on the streets, that someone who might be interested in the car industry doesn't want to take a risk on a 50-year-old car that might cost over $100,000 to buy. They can buy one of these cars. It'll come with a factory warranty. They can have confidence in driving it. It'll be a safe car. So they can take the wife and kids for a spin on a Sunday drive for a weekend and feel pretty safe and confident about one, if anything goes wrong, that they're safe, and also that they'll get home without going for a ride in a quick lift. So, what to call it? Well, my last name's South. Has that same ring about it like Ferrari, Porsche, Ford, Lamborghini, don't you think? Maybe not. Anyway, it is what it is. So what I've come up with, we'll call it Drive South. I'll get some merchandise going so you can be part of that as well. But right or wrong, that's what it's going to be. The first step is to build a prototype. There's hundreds and hundreds of different parts and suppliers involved in a car, so you need to pull that together into a design that's coherent, make sure everything works together. So that's going to take some time. I'm hoping to have a prototype running at the end of this year, which seems ambitious, but I've been doing some work in the background so far, looking at suppliers. Hopefully we can have a running car at the end of this year, which will then prove out. And we'll do some work around putting as many miles on it as possible. I've talked to some testing companies around getting a program together to test the vehicle. And of course, we need to race it, because racing's fun, racing is life, and it's the best way to prove out the product. The car manufacturers did it back in the day. I think the Torana, Ford, Chrysler all got involved in racing. And it stresses the car, and it's the way to prove it out and find where all those things that don't work together very well and help improve the design. So, secondly, in terms of the racing, a great marketing component. Peter Brock did wonderful things for Holden, as did Alan Moffat for Ford, and racing is where it's all about. So this car will definitely be raced, and maybe others might see that there's a benefit in doing that and buy one and race it as well. So who knows where it's going to go. Well, it's an ambitious project, no question about that. But you know, in life you've got to challenge yourself and set yourself goals and have dreams. And you know, what a dream, and what a great thing to do, to produce this car behind me from scratch and have as a turnkey car. I think you know, first day that you start it and drive it, I think it'll be a pretty emotional day. Long way to go yet, lots of decisions, lots of funds required, lots of challenges. Let's see what happens. These videos will document the build process, and it's your opportunity from the get-go to be part of that process. So like and subscribe, be part of the process, and it'll be a unique process where we're going to become a car manufacturer, hopefully, and you will be able to follow that process. All of the decisions, the challenges, the design, ideas, all part of the process, and you get to follow it along. And maybe as part of the comments you can make some suggestions that might be helpful along the way. Never one to knock a suggestion, so yeah, join the party, come along and be part of it. The third element of the marketing is to use some of the facilities we've got here on our land to maybe reproduce a program that you might or might not be familiar with. Came out of the UK, the three clowns talking about cars, so we can do something similar here. We've got the factory here, so people can come and see the car. We have open days, come and see the car being manufactured. We've got a food truck, everyone loves food, so come to the factory here, see the car being produced, come and have some food. We've got a 100-seat facility here, come and have a sit down, talk cars with various other people. We've also got a go-kart track here on the facility, on the land, so maybe car clubs can come and do some laps around the test track, and maybe we'll get some stars here in a reasonably priced car. We've got a Racing XL out there, so we'll get that fired up and we can do some comparisons around the star and the reasonably priced car. But I think there's an opportunity there to have some fun with that, just like our friends in the UK did, and let's see what happens. The next videos will be documenting some decisioning around some important components like engines, suspension, gearbox, differential, brakes. So we'll be documenting those just as we are here, and hopefully you'll join us for those videos. I think there'll be some interesting discussions around some of those, and maybe you'll have some input, and I look forward to presenting those to you. Wish me luck on the process. Thank you.
I'm making films.